All right, if you guys could see how I have this set up on my dining room table right now, you'd laugh, but you can see that I make my kids even do math at dinner, so just, fun fact. Today we're doing 11.3, which is simplifying rational expressions. So you will remember that a rational expression is an expression that can be written as a fraction, and the numerator and denominator are both polynomials. So today we're working on putting these in simplest form, and I'm sorry about the shaking. I'm trying to not bump the table too much, but it's just really not the best setup to be doing this. So we're working on simplest form. So if you think back to 6th grade, if we had something like 6/8 and we wanted to put that in simplest form, really what we're doing is we're making sure there are no common factors between the numerator and the denominator except for 1. So we can see pretty quickly what the simplest form is going to be here, but really what you're doing is you're breaking each into their factors. 2 times 3 are the factors of 6. 2 times 2 times 2 are the factors of 8. Then I can divide out the common factors, and I wind up with 3 over 2 times 2, or 3/4. Now obviously for this one, that was a lot more work than you would normally do to simplify 3/4, but we're going to be using that exact same method to simplify rational expressions, where the first step is to factor the numerator and the denominator. And then step 2, divide out any common factors. And that's all we have to do. So let's get started. All right, I have 3 examples here, and we're just going to go step by step. So we're going to start off by factoring the numerator and the denominator. So for this first one, 21 is 3 times 7, and that'll be times x. 7x squared is 7 times x times x. So when I divide out my common factors, I end up with a 3 in the numerator and an x in the denominator. Now if I'm asked about the excluded values, so if I'm told to state the excluded values, then I look back at my original function to see what is excluded from x. And in this case, the excluded value is x equals 0. And here you can see both with what I started with and what I ended with have the same excluded value, but later on you'll see where that's going to change a little bit. If I look at my next one, when I factor the numerator, that's just 3. When I factor the denominator, this isn't really following any of my factoring rules. That just 10 minus c, that is in simplest form already. So my excluded value here is just going to be c equals 10, because c is not allowed to be 10. That would give me 0 in the denominator. And finally, if I have 2 times w times w times w, that's over 2 times 2 times 2 times w times w times w plus 5. So there are a lot of factors there. I look for any common factors that can be divided out. I'm left with a w in the numerator, and then 2 times 2 is 4 times w plus 5 in the denominator. And when I look back here, I see that w equals -5, and it is an excluded value. But I also have to look back at my original function, and I see this 8w squared here. So w also can't be 0, or w equals 0 is an excluded value here. So that's why it's important that you go back to the beginning and you check, because if I put in 0 back in my original function, I would get undefined, because that would make my denominator 0. So just keep that in mind while you're doing these. Okay, 2 more examples here. This first one This is the difference of squares, so this will factor to d minus 2 times d plus 2. My denominator is 2 minus d. Now, if I look at this, I can see that I have the opposites of what I should. I have a positive 2 and a negative d. This is a positive d and a negative 2, so I'm going to factor out a negative 1. So when I do that, my signs will change. So this will become a negative 2, and this will become a positive d. Then I can switch the order. Oops, and I factored out a negative 1. So then what I can do is write this as d minus 2 times d plus 2 over d minus 2 times negative 1. And then I see that I have the d minus 2's cancel out. I end up with d plus 2 divided by negative 1. And then to deal with that negative 1 in the denominator, my signs will change again. Negative d minus 2 is what my final answer will be. And I don't have anything in the denominator. So again, I need to go back to the beginning. 2 minus d is what I started with in the denominator. So my excluded value here would be d equals a positive 2. Oops, bumped my stand. And then for the last one that I have on this page, I'm going to factor the numerator. I need to multiply to give me negative 6, add to give me negative 1. So I know the signs are going to be opposite, and the greater number will go with the negative because of the negative here. So this will be s plus 2 times s minus 3. And I need to multiply to give me negative 18, so it's either going to be 2 and 9 or 3 and 6 probably. I need to add to give me negative 7. So again, the bigger number has to be negative, so it's going to be s minus 9 and s plus 2, and you'll see conveniently they both have an s plus 2 as a factor. So if I actually was stuck trying to find the factors of the denominator, I would try both the factors of the numerator, because you can be pretty certain that one of them is going to divide out. So that can help get you started with how to factor your denominator. Here I divide out my common factors, and I get s minus 3 over s minus 9 in simplified form. Now from here, to do my excluded values, I see that s cannot be 9, or s equals 9 is an excluded value. But I also want to go back to the beginning, and really the factored form is the most helpful one. I see that s equaling negative 2 would make this factor 0. So s equals negative 2 is another excluded value there. So these are really all of the examples. This is everything you need to know how to do. Remember, you can always check with me if you have some questions as you work on your homework. I went through that pretty quickly. So your homework is page 564, and you're going to do numbers 1, 2, 4 through 20 even, 17, 22 through 25, and 26 through 28. So there's your homework assignment, and good luck with that.